Hey, Traci, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So why don't we start off, just tell us about you, your story, how you got doing to what you're doing now.
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest because it's way too long and I age myself every time I tell it. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Divine Social. We are a social advertising agency, and I've been doing that for just under 5 years. And it actually started because of a podcast that I have. So I'm a co-host of a podcast. It's called the Social Media Marketing Happy Hour. It's a mouthful. And that was something that I've been doing, like I said, for about 5 years. But prior to all of that, I was running a division of AT&T at a high level. I was a high-level sales leader over there. And my husband got really sick. My husband got sick about 19 years ago, and I couldn't keep working so again, I'm going to age myself, but back in the day before she went to prison, Martha Stewart, right, was like, she was running the empires. And I used to say, if Martha Stewart can run on 4 hours of sleep, so can I. And that's how I ran my position at AT&T, and I was working all the time and traveling constantly. And so I actually couldn't maintain that with what was happening in my family. So I ended up getting into digital marketing, and it was sort of this crazy journey, but it led me eventually to the podcast, which led me to my agency. So it's a little bit of a Reader's Digest, but that's how we got here.
Amazing. Okay. So how long have you had your agency?
It's just under 5 years, because the podcast, actually, as we're recording this, the podcast launched 5 years ago today. So the podcast launched 5 years ago today, and then probably within 6 months, my agency launched.
Okay. So what does your agency do?
So we do Facebook and Instagram advertising for e-commerce businesses, specifically in like the arts and crafts space, as well as natural products. And then we also work with influencers, coaches, consultants, some New York Times bestselling authors. It's just been amazing. So we help them create a strategy around their sales funnels and around customer journey. Like, we're really big customer journey people, and so that's what we do. It's been wildly fun. We did a little bit of Pinterest ads, but that's not our specialty. Just a tiny bit.
Pinterest ads are really hard.
They are. They're very hard.
Yeah.
We tried them for one of our really big crafting clients, and we got a little bit out of it, but they get so much lift over on Facebook and Instagram. We just keep our focus there.
Totally. So how many clients do you have with your agency?
Right now I believe we're at 8. We kind of keep it small,
okay.
Mostly because I'm limited. We can only, I have to have staff for every 4 to 5 clients. Yeah. So we try to keep it not too crazy so that everybody has a good quality of life. But, and right now we're at 50-50. So 50% of our clients are e-commerce physical product companies, and the other 50% are more the digital side. So, which is fun, because we get to pull best practices from each side. Sometimes people get really stuck on, and there is a benefit for working, people that understand your industry, but when you have exposure to some other things, you get creative ideas and innovation that you wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. So I like to try to keep us broadly specific, if that makes sense. Like, I try to stay in a range, but we're not super legalistic about that.
For sure. How many people do you have on your team to handle those 8 clients?
Well, there's a team of 5 of us right now. I've got 2 account managers, and then I have myself, and we've got someone part-time. She does all of our research. She is amazing. If you have, a lot of times people think that having ADD and having attention issues are a problem, but if you learn how to harness them, she's our team researcher. And because she goes on these rabbit trails, she is just an amazing researcher. So we've got 2 account managers, the person who does research, myself, and then I've got someone who helps me market the company.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So talk to us. How do you build a foolproof social media advertising strategy that's going to help engage your ideal clients?
Yeah. So through working with a couple of these big arts and craft clients. So when I say arts and crafts, I'm talking about like the manufacturers that sell into places like Hobby Lobby and Michael's and Joann's, that kind of stuff. We started to notice a pattern when we were working with them. And we started noticing that the more engaged their audience was, the better they converted, like the more people were purchasing, right? It kind of seems common sense.
Right.
But we started looking at these patterns with this particular client. We've been working with them now for 4 years. So just about the whole time we've had the agency. And so what we developed over the last couple of years doing this is we realized that if we focused on what I call the 3 pillars to successful social ads, if we focused on this framework, then we could actually architect out a strategy. Because a lot of times I see, Rachel, people slap up ads. It's kind of like an afterthought because they think they need traffic, but they've not actually thought it through,
Yeah.
right? They're like, oh, here's my lead magnet. Hopefully they'll buy it. Or, oh, here's my, here's a retargeting ad to my, to my product. Hopefully they'll buy it.
Yep.
And it doesn't always work well, or it usually doesn't work well. So what we've done is we've mapped out this process where we take these three pillars. They're three simple things. Number one is audience building. You have to have an audience, right? And that's not just like campaigns, but that's like people who are starting to know who you are. They might still kind of be cold-ish traffic, but they're familiar with you. So audience building is one. The second piece, and the most overlooked piece that we think is our secret sauce, is the engagement pillar. And this is a place where you get to provide value. You get to start to build the know, like, and trust factor. I add a fourth component to that. I call it the know, like, trust, and remember factor. So people can start to get to know you and remember you. And you're putting content, whether it be demonstrations or information or education or entertainment, you're putting stuff in front of them that's valuable, but you're not asking for anything necessarily.
Yeah.
So that engagement pillar is super, super important. And then finally, the third piece is the conversion campaigns, which everybody like. That when people come to us, typically it's like, we want to run ads, we want to sell stuff, we want to get leads, and that's ultimately the goal. It always is. But by taking this three-pillar approach, it blends branding with conversions, and that's where the magic happens. That's kind of the secret sauce. And so we step back and we look at the client's funnel. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, do you have a lead magnet into a tripwire into a, whatever the case might be? And then we back that out and we overlay advertising touch points so that we can very purposely move people from strangers to brand advocates and loyal fans. So it's a process, but it works amazingly well. And it works no matter what niche we work with. We've seen this process or an iteration of it work amazingly well, no matter the type of client.
Could you give examples of different ads that you might run at each of those steps?
Yeah. So, our focus is primarily Facebook and Instagram, and the audience building piece on Facebook is pretty straightforward. One of the things that we often do with our clients is we'll run a like campaign, and we use that at a very high level to test out audiences. We're trying to see who's going to resonate with benefit statements. And so it could be something like, I'm thinking about one of our clients, and it'd be like, if you love DIY creative patterns, follow us for more, content just like this. We might use a quick little video, and that's really straightforward. Now on Instagram, we can run the same thing, but you can't actually ask Instagram to get likes, like to get followers.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit more creative. So that audience building ad can be a like ad, it can be a video ad. Video ads kind of for us are a 1-2 punch. Mm-hmm. The reason being is we can run a video that is what we would consider pre-engagement content. So it's some kind of a very strategic piece of content that's designed to warm someone up to get to the next level. And we can use that ad to both create engagement as well as grow audiences of video viewers that we can then later on retarget to another maybe piece of content or to an offer or to whatever the case might be. So a video ad is a great, like, if you've got a limited budget, video ads are great. Like, that's just a great thing to do. So, so in that engagement series, in the engagement pillar, we can break it up in a couple different ways. We can do what we call pre-engagement, which I just mentioned, something that is strategic and is congruent. And I say congruent, I mean, begin with the end in mind. What do you ideally want your client or potential customer to do? And then work backwards. So you want to make sure that whatever that engagement type of content you're going to amplify with paid traffic, or even if you were doing this, not paid traffic, right? Make sure that piece of content, that the natural next step moves them one step closer to where you ultimately want them to go. See, this doesn't work if your content is just random. It's just like random doesn't work. It's got to be it's got to make sense. So, so the pre-engagement content, again, is going to be something that's going to lead them to the next step. We also use engagement content for what we call post-engagement. And that is something that can fall into, you've made an offer and they haven't accepted. So think about this. How many times have you've had, whether it's been a webinar or you've had someone come to, maybe you have a store or whatever it is, and they bounce, right? They come, but they don't buy. Less than 2% of people convert the first time out.
Yeah.
So what's your plan for the other 98%? So the post engagement content is geared towards that. It could be frequently asked questions. It could be overcoming objections. It could be customer testimonials. It could be another piece of information that they need to help them have the confidence to do business with you. So that engagement content, it's kind of, we split it into two, the pre and the post, or the before and the after. But we always think about how can we leverage this traffic so that we can move these people one step closer to a yes. Right. And so the types of ads, to give you the example, we're going to use heavily video. We might use some image ads that have, GIF images work beautiful these days, right? We might use something that's got some movement and animation in it, with some text that has testimonials or has some, just has the content people need. And so very, very image or video heavily focused. And if you're not using video, then on the ad, we recommend that the text really do the work, like the text of the ad do the heavy lifting for the engagement piece.
Cool.
And then the conversion campaign is typically, it's an opt-in. It's a, come to my webinar, opt into my lead magnet, buy this from my store. It depends on what it is. And those are the things that I think the conversion is what most people are they're familiar with, is a conversion ad, because that's what most people, if they are running social traffic, that's usually what they're trying to do.
That's what they want to do, but they don't realize they need the whole other piece to really get the conversion.
Yeah. Well, not just get the conversion, but to make it, this is usually what I tell my clients is, like, we're trying to build a long-term strategy for you, right? Like, we're not running a sprint here. This is a marathon. We want to be able to create a machine for you that over the long haul, you're constantly, bringing in new people into your ecosystem, you're nurturing them, and then you're making that offer. And what we've discovered is the clients that do this really well and agree to this, our methodology and philosophy, what we see is that their sales cycle shortens. So the time from somebody becoming a prospect to buying gets a lot shorter. And the other thing is the cost to actually convert them into a paying client goes down. So you are spending a little bit more on some campaigns that maybe you wouldn't normally do it, but you're building, like I said, you're building up that know, like, and trust factor. And if you do it with the right level of frequency, then they remember you when they're ready. What Google calls the 0 moment of truth, right? Which is when they buy.
Awesome. So what should your ad budget be when you want to do something like this?
Oh, that is a loaded question.
Yeah.
So that's going to
would there be like a minimum that you would suggest?
Well, again, I guess it depends on the stage of business you're in, right? So you want to be able to set aside enough money where you can generate enough data, and you can do it over a long enough period of time. So let me try to break that down a little bit. So typically you want to be able to have enough every day that you're spending so that you can get enough, statistically significant information, right? So if you're running a budget, there was a period of time where people were like, just run $5 a day, that's good enough. And, sometimes it is, but not for what I'm talking about. Like, you cannot fully run that system on $5 a day. You have to be able to get enough data to know, like, oh gosh, this creative is working really great in this audience, or this audience resonates with anything we put in front of them. And you will never know that if you don't put enough out there. So, if you can get to a point where, well, let me address the other thing before I do that. The other thing is to be able to do it long enough. So most people, even big advertisers, or I shouldn't say big-ish. Okay, so not tiny, but like maybe medium-sized advertisers. There's this thing in advertising, whether it's social ads or billboards or newspapers, it doesn't matter. It's common in advertising. And we call it the chickening out period. And it's somewhere right around the 90-day mark. And what happens is it's like if you were to, go out and plant a garden. Typically we plant our gardens, depending upon where you live, in April or May. That certain vegetables are not going to come up until a certain period, because that's the life. Maybe it's like 120 days before harvest or whatever it is. Well, with advertising, there is a window of harvest before it comes in. And typically, in my experience, it's around 90 to 120 days. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to harvest some stuff before then. It just means you're probably not going to really see traction at a level you could start to scale your business until that 90 to 120 day mark. So if you are strapped for cash and you're trying to, launch your business, and you're going to put in this little tiny amount of budget and you only have enough to run for 2 weeks, it's not enough. It's not enough time for the algorithm to get any kind of traction. It's not enough time for your market to get any kind of traction. And so you're not essentially giving that seed enough time to grow. You're going into the garden and you're digging it up before it can even sprout something green.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, it's really, there's a big mindset to all of this. So I want to answer your question, but it is a
Yeah.
difficult question to answer. If that makes sense.
No, it totally is. Would you say, like, if someone is willing to spend $2,000 a month for a 90-day period, would they be able to get enough data?
If you're able to spend $2,000 a month for a 90-day period, you should start to get some data for what you're doing. You're not going to be able to build out what I'm talking about at a full level. So
Yeah.
probably what I would do is I would look for some ways to get more bang for your buck. So my audience building and my engagement campaigns, I'd lump those together, and I'd be doing video campaigns to try to build up video view audiences at the same time of providing value into the marketplace. And so that typically somewhere around there, I usually like, if you can be somewhere between $50 to $100 a day, so $100 a day is around 3,000, so 1,500 to 3,000 a month, you're going to start to get some traction. But what you want to do is you want to look at your marketing expense as an investment, not as an expense, right?
Totally.
I don't know if you're familiar with Brooke Castillo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't work with Brooke, but I admire her very much. And
Yeah.
she talks a lot about how she's grown her business because they take marketing at the top of their budget. So they don't use what's left over for marketing. They purposely decide what they're going to spend on it. So if you can kind of shift your mindset in that regard, I think it really makes a huge difference.
Totally. I like when I first started doing Facebook ads, it was scary investment for me because we were like so new, and I was just like, all right, I got faith. I know my product is good. We just need more eyeballs on it and this is going to work. And then the first time I decided we're going to spend $10,000 on a 5-day challenge. That was like a huge investment for us because I think we only had like $20,000 in our business bank account. So it was like, all right,
Yeah.
well, I know this is going to work. And we ended up having a $50,000 launch because of it. And I'm like, we just 5x'd our money. Like we're onto something. So it's kind of like a slot machine. If you put in $1 and out comes 3, when you want to just keep increasing.
Exactly. But the thing is, and I guess I'd ask you this, is when you did that, when you made that decision, even though it was scary, my guess is you knew your numbers before you did that.
I did.
Yeah.
I knew my numbers really well. So I have like spreadsheets where I know my webinar conversion numbers, our challenge conversion numbers. So I knew it worked. And I knew our conversion numbers were really good. And we literally just needed to get in front of more people.
And that's the key, right? If you know your numbers, and you have to understand too, like if you've only ever built your conversion numbers with organic traffic, it's going to be slightly different from cold paid traffic. It's going to be slightly different, but there should be some trends. But if you know those numbers going in, then you are going to essentially make a hypothesis that it should perform very similarly. And so, again, you don't want to. The worst thing that you can do is like if you didn't know your numbers and you spent that 10,000 and you only had 20,000 in your account, like that's even scarier. But
Totally.
It's actually, even though it felt scary to you, it was actually calculated. It was, there's a lot of thought behind it. And so that's usually one of the first things when I start engaging with a potential client is I start asking them questions around their numbers. Like, do they know them? Do they know the economics of their business? Do they know the length of their sales cycle? How long from somebody coming into your ecosystem to the fact, to the point that they buy? Yep. And typically the higher cost your offer. So if it's a higher ticket item, it's going to be a longer sales cycle. Yeah. It just is, we had a client that was convinced that their sales cycle was 6 weeks. And after working with us, we found out it was 8 months.
Wow.
And that's a very different sales cycle, right?
Yeah.
So if you think that your clients are going to convert in 6 weeks, but they're not converting for 8 months, like number one, like that's a different cash flow conversation, right? How much money before you can be cash flow positive? Yeah. Number two, how much content do you have to keep in front of them to move them towards purchase? Like there's so many different factors, and we were able to make a huge impact on that particular client in shortening it. But we weren't able to shorten it, we weren't able to shorten it back to the 6 weeks he thought it was, but we were able to cut it down a couple of months time, which, was huge, but it's still, those are the kinds of things that you have to really understand. And it's okay if you don't. However, once you do start putting money into paid social, that's how you're going to start to get some of those numbers faster, right? Yeah. You got to think of it that way. Like I'm going to make this investment essentially in getting data on my business and not on anybody else's. Because that's the other thing too. We see a lot, right? People are like, well, Rachel put $10,000 into a 5-day challenge. I'm going to, and it's like, no, that was Rachel's business, right? Yeah. So you have to understand that you learn, right? People learn from you, but they have to do they have to get the data that is unique to their own situation.
For sure. I'm curious, what's the price point of something that's an 8-month sales cycle?
That one was a like $20,000 offer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and I, we've had clients that have higher price tickets that it's not as long of a sales cycle.
Yeah.
A lot of it just depends on the market. Who's your ideal client? Who are we talking to? What's the, there's a lot of different factors.
For sure.
But yeah, and that's why it's, so hard sometimes, nothing that we do is cookie cutter. Like we have our methodology.
Totally.
It's almost impossible for me to do anything cookie cutter because every business comes to us, they're different.
Totally. I mean, we do Pinterest marketing and I get so many questions about how many times should I pin? How many boards should I have? And a lot of times I'm like, it really depends on your business. Like I can't tell you exactly that you should pin 5 times a day or 30 times a day, like every business is different.
Right. It's the same with social ads. And that is something that we have a little joke internally because we have a couple, one is an ex-client, one is a current client, and they always want to know what other people are doing and they make all their decisions on what other people are doing. And we try, like we want them, again, like I said, you want to learn best practices, but you have to adapt it. You are unique, your business is unique, and you have to be willing to we've got a saying, right, where you eat the meat but you spit out the bones. Like you can't just eat the whole thing from somebody else.
Totally.
Yeah.
So when do you think clients are ready to buy after you've been doing all of the marketing?
Yeah, so this is a fun one, right? So I always ask this question. The question is essentially, when are people ready to buy? And the answer is really simple. It's when they're ready. Like it's not trying to be sarcastic about it, but it's like people are ready to buy when they're ready to buy. And so this kind of goes back to this whole concept of know, like, trust, and remember. Mm-hmm. So if 2% of the people are converting the first time out, you've got 98% of the people that had some kind of an interest but aren't ready yet. Mm-hmm. So when I was running the sales team back in the day at AT&T, what we always taught our reps was if people purchase, right, at the time that they buy is 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock is when they buy. If someone comes into your world or you come into their world at 1 o'clock, they're not ready to buy until the clock strikes 12 again. So what are you going to do to either speed up time or nurture them until that point happens? And so if you think about it, right, like several years ago, it took on average 7 touches to get a sale, right? So from the time somebody found out about you until they closed. Today, the average person gets hit with over 400 marketing messages a day. Oh, right? So that's kind of scary.
Right.
For some people that could be like, well, I'm not even gonna do this. This is a waste of time. Nobody's gonna hear me. And it's like, no, that you're missing the point.
Yeah.
The point is you want to have a plan and a strategy to thoughtfully be in front of your ideal prospects on a consistent basis without spamming them and without driving them crazy, where you are adding value to their world, right? So let's say it's 1 o'clock that you've got a, I'll use my one client as an example, right? It's 1 o'clock, they sell these machines for crafters, and people aren't ready to buy it, right? Because maybe they have to save up for it or whatever the case might be. So what we do is we serve up an ad about a project that they can make. Oh, now they get more excited and they really want to make that project because Christmas is coming and they want to start making their Christmas presents, right? And so now they're at 4 o'clock. And now we might put something in front of them where it's talking about like the differences between the machines that this company sells. And now they're more clear on which one they want. And now it's 9 o'clock. And now what we might do is we might put them, let's say they've consumed several pieces of content. They've been to our site 2 or 3 times. We're going to give them a very, very specific piece of content with maybe another project with a call to action. So what we're doing is we're staying in front of them with some thought process to keep them nurtured until that 12 o'clock comes back around. Because a lot of times, it breaks my heart when I see businesses invest in traffic and then they don't do anything to continue to nurture that traffic that they've already paid money for. Totally. Right? Like it's like having a bucket of water with holes in it and you're not doing anything to cover up the holes. So by spending a little bit of money on some amplified content to retarget those people multiple times with multiple messages, multiple hooks, multiple angles, you are increasing the odds that you're going to be in front of those people when they are in fact ready to buy.
I love that. So one of my friends, Christina Jindali, we spoke at the same event, and she teaches Facebook groups. And one of the things she's talking about is you don't want to just reach out when you want to sell. She's like, don't let your people feel like they're a booty call. Like you need to make sure that
Yes.
you're nurturing them. And I think that's so true. A lot of times people literally, they're just wanting to sell and they forget about the serving.
It's so true. So I don't use booty call, but that's exactly what it is. So one of my favorite books is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I talked earlier about one of the principles, which is beginning with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
That's one of them. One of the other ones is the concept of the emotional bank account, right? You have to, in a regular bank account, you have to be able to make deposits before you go and make a withdrawal. If I need $10,000 and I don't have it in my bank, the bank is not going to give me $10,000.
Yep.
And we do that to our lists.
Mm-hmm.
We do that to our followers. We do that to our fans. We have a client that I love, and they do this. And we've been working with them for a few years, and we've been trying and trying and trying. They're getting a little bit better, but it's such a nasty, nasty habit. And I said to them, you only show up in people's news feeds when your hands are outstretched and you're asking people to open up your wallet, open up their wallet. And it's really, really ugly.
Yeah.
And imagine if you were showing up in people's news feeds 365 days a year, making their lives better. And it doesn't really take that much effort or expense. And what that will get you in returns. And I'll tell you, Rachel, last year we got this client. They do a huge launch every year. It starts on the 26th of December. So it's always a very fun time for us at the end of the year. And this woman has sold 15 million books. Like she's very, very famous, very popular. And the first year we did this, we had no pre-engagement. We had no warm up. Last year, we managed to get her to start doing some value add in October. Like we couldn't get her to go any earlier than that. But we 3x'd her launch last year.
Wow.
Because for a few months in advance, we were warming up our audience. We were paying, we were giving and adding value in the newsfeed. And I think she might've spent, I want to say like $4,000 tops to do that. Yeah. It just absolutely incredible results. So there really is something to this. Like nobody wants to be somebody's booty call, right? Nobody wants to be that. No one.
I think that's a really big takeaway because I see a lot of people, they just want to launch and they don't realize we call it like a runway of the longer the runway, the more successful the launch. And so
Correct.
With your example, a 3-month runway, and she was able to triple what she'd done before. Like that's huge.
It's humongous. And and again, here we are, it's July. We have, I think my team has a call with them today to try to get them to start even a little bit sooner. Cause it's such a, they've been in this mindset for so long of launch only. And it's like, golly. Now the thing is, and I will give this client some credit because she's an amazing woman. Yeah. She is showing up for her buyers all year round. For sure, she is, because she sells an annual program. But imagine what would happen if you were showing up at a different level. You don't have to show up the same way to your prospects as you do your buyers. But if you just showed up, what would that look like? If you showed up with the intent to give and not get, when you do decide to ask, it's got, it's the whole Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Like the jab, 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 right hook. It's the same concept.
Yes.
That book is super outdated, but the principles and philosophies are still relevant. So
totally. I read that book back in, I think like 2012 or something when I first started in like the online space. And that was such a huge game changer for me because I was in network marketing and all I saw was people sell on Facebook. And I just kind of switched for me of like, what if I just give? And what if? And I really set myself apart from all the other people that just were like posting their links and everything and just spamming.
Well, now this takes another mindset shift. So you think that whole thing that you just said, but now be willing to put some money behind it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are willing to do that as long as it doesn't cost them anything but their time.
Yeah.
The truth is, with the way the social platforms are today, it's really, really difficult to get that message amplified in front of the right people at the right time unless you're willing to put some money behind it. Yep. So, if you can take, let's just go back to your $2,000 example. So if you can take out of your $2,000, if you can take, let's say half of it and earmark half of it to just amplifying valuable content. Now, again, don't do any content. Make sure that content is congruent with what you're ultimately wanting them to do. Like make sure it makes sense. Yeah. But if you do that kind of thing and what's going to happen is you're going to start to build a groundswell of followers, of people who are like, oh my gosh, I love what she's saying. And I love what she's putting out there in the world. And I just want more of it. And sometimes, we get discouraged because we're putting out regular content, but it's not getting in front of the right people at the right time, or it's going slow. Well, run a video view campaign for $10 a day to the right audience, to a very targeted audience, and see what starts to happen. Start looking at how many people are watching 25% of my video or 50% of my video. And you'll be blown away at what starts to happen to your business if you are purposely earmarking your marketing dollars to creating this value and building this amplification and building up this groundswell, so that when you are ready to ask, you've got a group of engaged people that you're going to be asking, rather than a bunch of people that are cold.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Cool. So what's one tip you can give for us that if we want to start doing Facebook, Instagram ads, like what's one big thing or a big mistake you see people making?
Oh my God, so many. Um, I mean, I think we've probably hammered it in. I think the biggest mistake I see people is really only ever asking. The other thing is, let's give a tip for people who are spending a lot, people who are maybe spending a little bit more than, just dipping their toe in the water. The thing that is really important today that I'm seeing more than ever is changing out your creative more frequently. I see a lot of people that, oh my gosh, it's like, if you've probably seen it in your newsfeed where it's somebody with a cat video, it's like, or a cat picture. It's like, you gave zero thought to this. Like you gave zero thought to, you probably spent days and months and weeks creating your product and your offer. And then it's like, oh crap, I have to market it. Let me do this. Creative is important. And some of the biggest, most successful advertisers today are changing out their creative every day, every other day. And now that being said, to the average listener, that's not you. Like that isn't you, but you don't have to change it that often. I'm talking about people who are spending, $1 million plus a day in some cases. There are some
$1 million.
Yeah.
Can you do that on Facebook?
Yeah, you can. There's very few people that are, but there are some really, really big e-commerce brands that are, and they're changing their creative every single day.
Wow.
So we've got some clients that spend $100,000, $200,000 a month, and those clients, we have to change their creatives out very frequently.
Yeah.
But there is a lesson, even for a smaller advertiser in this, is how good is your creative? Are you testing new things? Are you testing new images? Are you thinking about how to stop the scroll? Are you thinking about how to get in front of the news, people's news feeds? So I think really focusing on the creative. I think if you've got listeners that do, the webinar model, stop doing videos that the video only asks people to show up. Like, stop doing that. Like, if you're going to do a video for something like that, give them value and then tell them, if this is valuable, then come to the webinar to get more.
Yeah.
Be really thinking about the creative that you're putting in the newsfeed. It really does make a difference.
Huge.
So yeah, huge difference. How
do you manage everything?
Sometimes by magic. It's not easy. But I definitely, the one thing I learned a few years ago, it was kind of ironic. So when I started my agency, I got really, really sick. So it was awesome timing. Like, I've got a new company and I've got new clients, and it's just me. I was a solopreneur. So I really wasn't actually an agency. It was just me. And I got so sick that I basically could work 12 hours a week.
Oh.
It was awful. Like, it was just, my adrenals were almost like completely failing. My digestion was like, I have a bunch of autoimmune issues, and it was just a mess. And, I learned during that season that self-care, it feels indulgent, and it feels like you're wasting time, and it feels like you shouldn't be doing it. But that whole saying, slow down to speed up, not only did it save my life, it actually propelled my business.
Wow.
So I do take time every day. It's non-negotiable, except like if I have to catch a plane or I'm going somewhere. But even when I am traveling, I try to keep my routine, spend time every morning in prayer and meditation, self-care. I do a lot of things for my health, like detoxification protocols and saunas and things like that. And I've learned to make that thinking time. One of the best things as a business owner has been journaling.
Yeah.
I journal every single day. Sometimes, I think if people could read my journal, they'd be like, whoa, she's bipolar. But it's like the only place I can, it's the only truly safe place sometimes in business.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge, huge thing. And the other thing for me, Rachel, is I see a therapist twice a month.
Huge.
To keep my stress levels down, to take care of myself, because, as women, I hate to say it, but we run the world.
Yeah.
Our families and all of that. And I'm very, very fortunate. I have a really supportive spouse, and, but he is disabled. And so, he can he can only get to so far in helping me. So it's really, really important that we put our oxygen mask on first and take care of ourselves. And then there's more of us left to give later. So
For sure.
yeah, that time's non-negotiable.
No, I mean, you're speaking my language. Back when I was building my network marketing company, I hustled so hard to get to the top of the company. I burned myself out, got adrenal fatigue, and was sick all the time. And I learned really quickly that you have to do self care. So I have like the exact same morning routine where I wake up early, I pray, meditate,
Yeah.
journal, and have that quiet time. Because if I don't, like, my mind is a mess and I
Right?
don't get stuff done.
Well, I've also even learned in the middle of the day, like if I sometimes like I'll have a moment where something's gone wrong or I'm realizing I'm lost, right? Do you ever get just like lost in all the tabs and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like I've learned to give myself a timeout. Like, yeah, you know what? You're gonna walk away and I'll either go sit on the back deck or I'll go back to my, my little prayer location with my journal, put on some music and just like take a deep breath and have a little timeout for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes longer,
Yeah.
because I just realized like you are completely useless. And, um, that for me, that was a big wake up call when all that happened, because it was the third time I've had adrenal fatigue. This time
Wow.
it was stage 3.5 and I am, I'm in my late 40s. And so you start to run out of actual physical runway. Like you get to a point where your body is like, yeah, we're just done. Like, we're not going to let you do this anymore. And so
Yeah.
I realized like, wow, this is no joke. And even I started realizing like people like Ariana Huffington started talking about sleep,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of friends in the network marketing business. So I know there's a sentiment of, grind while others are sleeping, right? I'm going to do what others won't so I can have what others don't. That whole philosophy,
Yeah.
in theory, it's good, but in practice, it's destructive. It's
Yeah.
absolutely destructive. And so, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And so, I'm a workaholic and I still have a hard time shutting down, but it's better than it ever has been before. So it's the
For
only
sure.
way I can keep it all going. And the other piece is hiring really good people. Like when I took on my first team member, that was really, really competent, it's changed my life. It's absolutely changed my life. So
Game
big deal.
changer. Game
Yeah.
changer. If you don't have your health, you can't have a business,
Correct.
like when
Yeah.
you get in that state of adrenal fatigue, like I just remember being on the couch, like I'm useless. I can't do anything. Like,
Uh-huh.
I have to be a mom of a 1-year-old and try to put him in like an enclosed area. And I'm like, this is not working. He wants to break out. Like that
Yeah.
really made me realize how important it is. One, prioritize health over business. Like that
Yep.
needs to come number one. And obviously sleep is huge too.
It's well, one thing I did, and this is, people, I've got some friends that tease me because we, in this house, Alexa shuts off all the lights at 9:15. We are in bed at 9:00.
Me
Lights
too.
are out at 9:15. Yeah. Oh, she thinks,
Alexa just heard you.
I should know better. So
She's gonna turn off all the lights. Oh my gosh. No, I'm
So
in
I
bed
mean
at
that
9. Yeah, like if I want to wake up at 5 and have my morning routine before my son wakes up,
absolutely.
like I gotta be in bed.
Yeah, and that's when you realize, like, is that show really more important than your health and your sanity and your success? Like, it's
No,
not. It
no,
isn't.
no.
So, yeah, had to make that decision. That was at first that felt weird, but I got a sleep app, and because I'm a competitive person, like it shows you your trends. And so I was like, oh, I have to go to bed so my trend stays, my trend stays where it is. I don't want to see the changes, and whatever it takes. But, and I know that's hard, especially if you've got young kids and you've got a lot of kids, it's difficult. But eventually, most of the successful clients of mine and friends of mine that are successful in business, I'm starting to see more and more of us are going to bed early. We are, going to bed between 9 and 10 o'clock, or if not earlier. I have one client that's in bed at 8 o'clock. I'm like, oh,
Goals.
yeah,
Goals.
goals. I know, right?
I
Oh,
love it. What's the
yeah.
best book you've read?
The best book I am a voracious reader. Um, I know I've mentioned 7 Habits of Highly Effective People a few times. I really, really love that book. I should look over. I read 10 plus books a month.
I love
Um, yeah. And so I just think it depends on what stage I'm in my life, or what's important to me. Right now, I've been actually reading. I'm a follower of Jesus, so I've been reading some stuff to like build up my like inner strength, because I've had it's been a weird season for us. So it just, I guess it depends on the moment. But I would say 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a good one. Another one that I read recently that I've kept on my bedstand is The Road Less Stupid.
it.
If you're a business owner, that is I have to tell you, it's not a book you'll read fast because there's so many thought-provoking questions in it. Like I found myself leaving it at my nightstand because I will open it and read a question and then just meditate, chew on that as I'm falling asleep. And it's
Who's the author
really
of that one? It's Keith
Keith
Cunningham.
Cunningham. Yeah,
Okay, cool. I was like, wait, I have that book.
it's really good. It's really good. And some of it is really hard. Some of it's like, oh crap, I do that. Or, oh shoot, like, but it's
Yeah.
good. It's a really good book.
Cool. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
Oh gosh, everything, right? So a quick story, when I was a little kid, my uncle was an immigrant from Greece and he came here with nothing in his pockets, no money, no nothing. Went to work for his uncle, working in a pizza shop. And when I was 4, he took my grandfather and I to this uh, unit in a strip mall under construction, a store front basically. And he showed me, this is where the oven's gonna go and this is where the table's gonna go. And then before I knew it, there was a restaurant. And several years went by and he bought the plaza that the restaurant was in. And then when I was 12, he took me to a piece of land that he had staked out. And he said, this is where this building is going to go. And this is where this building is going to go. And this is where this building is going to go. And he went on to become the biggest commercial developer in that community in Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And I learned from an early age that an entrepreneur with a vision can change their world, their community's world, their family, and the world around them. And for me, everything that I do, it always goes back to my uncle because he changed my world. He made an impact in my life because he took a risk to be a business owner. And I have a superpower where I can take my superpower and partner it with visionaries that have taken a risk, and I can help them change their lives, their families' lives, their communities' lives, their world's lives. And to me, that's what making an impact is all about.
Oh, you gave me goosebumps telling that story. Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
And my uncle is an amazing man. He's one of the hardest working guys I know. And I did not realize that as a little girl, he was teaching me to be a visionary. He was teaching me to see things that are not.
Yeah.
It's just been incredibly powerful. And I've had such a passion for people like him that take those kinds of risks and how can I support them? And that's
Yeah.
why we do what we do at Divine Social.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
What's next? Well, we're launching a masterclass where I'm teaching the 3 pillars at a deeper level, really teaching strategy. I believe that tactics change, but once you get your strategy nailed down, you're good. So that's probably the big thing that's next. I'm going on a much needed vacation. I'm going back home to New England. I'm going to Maine. I'm going to sit on the beach in Maine. My little brother's getting married on the beach this summer. And I'm going to eat a lot of seafood and a lot of ice cream and unplug from, who am I kidding? I'm going to try to unplug from digital. But yeah, and next year is shaping up to be a really great year. We're expanding the team. We're bringing on some new team members so we can bring on some more clients. We definitely are planning on expanding. So I'm hoping to double the size of the team in 2020. I think it's going to be a big year for us and for a lot of the brands we partner with. So very excited.
Woohoo. Well, where can we connect with you?
So I've got a special page for listeners. If you go to my website, divinesocial.com/she's making an impact, there you can find, I've got the 3 pillars. I have a free mini class. It's about a 15-minute video with some worksheets that'll walk you through how to start to map out this strategy in a really simple way, whether you're just getting started in social ads or you've been doing it for a while. And then on that same page are all the places you can connect with me. I mean, literally just Google my name and you can get me on every social platform. I've been marketing online since pre-Facebook. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That's impressive.
Oh.
Well, I have had so much fun and learned a ton. So thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.